Hello everyone and welcome to our Maize Crop webinar. My name is Elise Grolière. I'll be your host today for this annual event where we will take a deep dive into the current state of the corn market, both globally and regionally, focusing on Europe and France. So our goal today is really to provide you with a clear understanding of our market fundamentals and how these elements will influence the crop this year with the input of our expert, Claude Gagnol. We'll also discuss the opportunities and potential risk in the upcoming month. So we encourage you to ask questions and participate in the discussion to make this as interactive as possible. We have a lot of insights to share, so we hope this webinar will be valuable to all of you. So once again, thanks for joining us. Let's get started. Just a few rules before we start. All attendees are on mute. But you can send your questions on the chat on the right, and we will keep them for the Q&A session at the end of this webinar. And if we don't have time to answer to them directly, we will come back to you personally after. You will receive the presentation after the webinar, and you'll also have access to the replay on YouTube. Let's start with our speaker for today, Claude Gagnol, who will do the market review. So Claude is our Integrated Chains and Purchasing Director at Limagrain Ingredients, but he's also the USM President, so it's the French maize milling industry. Also the Vice President of Euromaizier, European maize milling industry, and he's our sourcing specialist at Limagrain Ingredients for wheat and maize. So Claude, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Elise. Good morning and good evening to our friend from Far East. It's really a pleasure to share this market review every year with you. A few weeks ago, we were having a focus on the wheat. Today, we focus on the corn, and we have many things to share. Thank you for listening. And as said Elise, I'm very ready to answer your question after the presentation. So let's have a look to the market fundamental first. What has happened since October last year? 12 months for sure, but many things are happening and on a yearly basis. But if we look at the weather, we can say on a daily basis, we have some new events. So yesterday in France, we had a lot of rain and now a lot of flooding, which is affecting the crop, especially for the corn in some regions. But this is life, and it's not easy to overcome this kind of situation, especially this year, the crop is late. So concerning the worldwide situation, there is still these two major conflicts at stake. So meaning of course, the crisis between the war between Ukraine and Russia, which is still important factors to look at and to watch. And more recently, there is this, I would say, very dramatic conflict in Middle East, and it could lead to some serious issue in terms of supply. If we consider the key, I would say, region for transporting the goods for energy, of course, but not only. So this has not yet occurred, meaning in terms of problem of transport, but it could happen soon or late, or maybe never. So, but let's watch this kind of situation very carefully. Second, we have this usual, I would say, event or information we can get on a daily basis on the broadcast. So not only on the war between Russia and Ukraine, but as well with the future vote within less than 1 month in US. So, you know, it can impact, especially the situation in the Middle East and in Black Sea area. And there is this very obscure, I would say, relationship between China and Russia. Many things are done behind or back, I would say. And it is seriously impacting on the trade, on the world trade, when it comes to talk about the cereals, for instance, but not only, we talk as well about the soybean, for instance. So concerning the corn crop, Looking at the worldwide situation, generally speaking, I would say that the weather condition or the cropping condition were quite good this year. You can see most of the area are on the green color, which is good. And when they are at the blue color, it is exceptional condition. And in the States, for instance, they are benefiting during this year 25 very good crop condition for wheat and corn. The corn harvest is starting. It's well advanced in the States, and it is expected at a high level. For I would say Europe and the European countries, the situation is not so bad in terms of quantity because we had a lot of rain for sure. But for the wheat, it was a very difficult crop concerning the quality of the wheat and even the quantity, at least in France. So what has happened in France is very, I would say, important for the French farmer and for the French supply. But on the world scale level, it has not been so impactful. There is some concern about the Black Sea area. We talk about drought. It's not clear, I would say. There is for sure a drought, a very dry situation, and it has affected the production of the corn, especially in Hungary, Romania, and to less extent compared to last year in Ukraine and Russia, but it's still under pressure, and especially during the seeding at the moment for the wheat. Looking at the South Hemisphere, so in Australia, it's a pretty good situation, except in the very southeast of Australia. And for South America, they have benefited very nice crop condition for the safrina corn that has been harvesting during the summertime. Now they are planting the next year crop for the soy and for the corn. The situation is not so good because they have experienced a very dry period of time last few weeks, and which has impacted the seeding of the corn and the soya, with some delay and some difficulties for the germination. So we have to be careful for the next year crop because of this situation in South America. Regarding the quantity for the corn which has been harvested, when you look at the information which are shown in green, that means the situation is quite normal or pretty good. And when it is in red, it is a situation which is less good as last year, significantly less good as last year. So overall, you can see we have a lot of green. And when you look at on the cycle on the right side, the diagram, it is just to represent what has happened in the different key area. When we look at the United States, for instance, for the corn, you can see that most of the diagram is in blue, which is meaning a very good corn crop. And when we look at China, even if the information is not so clear, but we can see that this year the Chinese territory has generating some good crop for the corn. When it is in gray, it is not that concern because the production is not ongoing. For instance, in Brazil, they are just seeding, so we don't talk about harvest and crop. Now let's talk about the general worldwide availability for the corn. So supply and demand are quite balanced, which is a good thing, generally speaking. We can see as well that the carryover, that is important criteria to look at the volatility of the market, it is stable. It is representing around 25% of the yearly need. So it is stable for the last 3 years, but we have to be careful about the quantity available for export. Very few countries are exporting. It is mainly United States, Brazil, Ukraine mostly, and United States and Brazil. United States, it will be okay in terms of corn availability for export. Brazil, so far it's okay, but we don't know about the next crop for the next spring crop harvest. So it is something that we need to look at very carefully. And concerning Ukraine, they have produced 5 million tons less than last year. So the volume are not so large. So once again, we have to be careful with this matter of corn availability for the export. Concerning Europe, more in depth, what we can say is that the overall crop is a little bit less than last year. We lost 4%. We have reached 60 million tons compared to 62.5 last year. This is mainly due to the lower yields in Eastern Europe. It was a very promising crop during springtime, a very advanced crop. And during summertime, they have experienced 6 weeks very hot and dry. So the temperature was reaching more than 40 degrees Celsius and without any water, of course, indeed. So at the end, the crop is not so good and it's pretty bad, I would say. So it's a general trend in these Eastern countries like Hungary, Romania, for instance, which are an important producer of corn. When we look at the western side of Europe, the situation is different. For instance, in France, we will be talking about later on. And so the production of corn is more important because we have more acreage and as well we have a good yield, at least in France. We have more acreage because we have less acreage for the wheat. So the acreage that has been left by the wheat has been sent to the corn production. So we have to look at the use. The use, I would say, local use are stable, but we are going to export less due to the reduction of the quantity of product which has been produced in Europe this year. So at the end, the carryover is stable. What we have to look at is the import from Ukraine. It's a significant volume that Europe is importing from Ukraine. So you can see on this graph that the situation is, I would say, on the monthly basis, it's well balanced. But the most important importer are Spain and Netherlands. So a lot of corn from Ukraine is going to Spain and Netherlands. So now it's something which is balanced between the two countries. And as well, we have the German user as well, which are importing some corn from Ukraine. So we have to be careful with this year about the availability of the Ukrainian corn. Concerning French territory, this graph is representing the situation over the last 30 years. So in a short sentence, this year the acreage was better in France. We have more quantity. We expect to reach more than 14 million tons of corn compared to 12.5 last year. And the yield is a little bit less than last year. But as already said, we have more acreage. So that is to say we have a good production of corn in France. But as you know, we have experienced a very, very poor production of wheat. So in France, the use are more or less stable compared to the year before. Of course, the main use for the corn is animal feeding. And we export some quantity to Europe as well. So this export, of course, is important, and we expect to grow this export due to the availability of the corn this year. For the animal feeding, it is a little bit increasing after some decrease last few years. It is due to the, I would say, the animal feeding market, which is less demanding because the cattle is reducing. Concerning the market and the price, So we have to look at what has happened, at least in France, for the wheat, and as well to less extent in Germany. So this year, the quality of the wheat is much less good than last year, and a lot of quantity are not meeting the trading specification. So this is especially the case for the weight per hectoliters, which is less than the norm, less than 76 kilogram per hectoliters. And the situation is very impacting not on the food market, but as well the feed market, because a lot of wheat is going to the feed market because of the poor quality and not fitting the food grade specification. So we have to be careful on that. It is impacting the value of the byproduct on the feed market. We will talk about that later. Concerning the market price, so you see that we have a lot of volatility. During the last 16 months, we can observe more or less 60%, 60 euro difference between the lowest and the highest, which is a lot. So this volatility is resulting to the different geopolitical situation, of course, and this, I would say, generally speaking, low level of availability for export. So the market is very sensitive to that, and in one day you may have 6 euro, 10 euro difference price between the morning and the evening. So this is important to know that and to be very, very careful. So we don't know what could be the next few months orientation for the corn and the wheat, but once again, it is very sensitive and we have to be careful. Now we are looking at like a plateau, but the trend should be to remain at this level of the plateau around 220 euro. But once again, we have to be careful every day. So just to come back to the key parameters which makes the raw material available and which makes the market price as well. So first is the ratio, consumption and production, stock and consumption. So we have seen that it is 25% stock, so stable. But once again, we have to look at the export availability. The rate between euro and dollar, at the moment, the euro is very strong compared to the dollar. So it is not helping the export from Europe. So that means the states, they have a better chance to export and as well South America. So the wheat and the corn acreage and of course the crop volume. So now we are harvesting the corn. The crop is late, as already said. In France, we have managed to harvest more or less 30% of the crop, but it is less than last year due to the rain, of course. And we have to look at that very carefully because of the quality, which may be affected by the late harvest, especially about the mycotoxin issue. So the animal feeding as well is very important because more than 80%, even 85% of the corn is going to animal feeding. So it is very impactful in terms of the price. The ethanol market, do not forget that in the States, more than 30% of the production is going to the ethanol use. So any political decision can affect to this kind of market, and it will be resulting in an impact on the corn price and the cereals price afterward. Sanitary regulation, that's a big concern because more we go, more the regulation is becoming stricter and stricter. Now we are experiencing two new, I would say, reduction limit for some contaminant for the mycotoxin and propan alkaloid. So mycotoxin, for the Don, for instance, we are coming from 1,750 ppb and down to 1,500. So knowing the fact that the crop are late, we are some exposition to the risk of mycotoxin for the late crop, late harvest. We know that after end of October, the situation is becoming exponentially risky when we consider the mycotoxin in the corn. For the tropane alkaloid, it's this matter of datura. So it's a new regulation. Because of the lack of herbicide solution for the farmer, it is difficult now to get rid of the datura weeds in the fields. And the datura, they are generating some seeds which are mixing with the corn at the harvest, of course, and as well the leaves of the datura when there is some I would say mixing with the corn, the grain, it can generate as well some presence of alkaloid into the grain. So the contact between the leaf and the grain. Then you have some possible additional parameters, the geopolitical instability. We have been talking about that. The growth or the recession perspective. So at the moment, there is a big question about the situation in China, not only for the cereals, but for the use of oil, for instance. The Brent is cheap at the moment because the perspective for China use in terms of energy are not so promising. The weather market, every year we experience something different. Even on a daily basis, we experience something different. And the worldwide commodity market, oil, of course, minerals, and so on. For the speculative, it's a very speculative market. And now the funds are investing as well in the cereals market. So what we don't know clearly is what is happening in China. It can affect, as already said, and as well some political decision which may occur, like for instance the use of corn for ethanol production or import restriction. We have been talking about. We have been hearing as well about what is happening in Russia. They intend to raise a limit price to export, a minimum price to export, $250 per ton. So, or to increase the export tax. So there is something which is not clearly expressed at the moment about what is happening in terms of Russia export. They have put a lot of pressure on the cereals market during the summertime to export and to take the business. They have taken a lot of business in North Africa, in Algeria, for instance, but not only in Egypt. And they are benefiting the situation in Europe, which is not good for the wheat, as already said, due to the quality and the lack of quantity and quality for the wheat. Now the Russians, they are very, very impactful in the market, but it seems that they want to reduce the export due to maybe some risk of lack of volume because of the drought they are experiencing at the moment for the seeding. Now let's talk about the synthesis of the situation for the different factors which may impact bullish or bearish factors, the proven factors. Important crop from US. So for the corn, for sure they are dominating the international business for the corn. So and for the soybean as well. So there was a good safrinha corn production in Brazil during last summer, but we have some concern about the next safra corn production in next spring. So the European crop is in slight decline, 60 million tons. In France, we expect 2 million tons French corn more than last year, which is a good thing. We don't fear any serious issue for the supply of corn in France, generally speaking, but we have to be careful with the sanitary situation. And we have as well this matter of high quality premium that we pay to the farmer to get the right quality corn for the milling purpose. You know that we are using special quality corn for the dry milling step, and this is something which is very important. The factors to watch, of course, we have this byproduct value due to the situation with the wheat. which is putting the pressure on the feed market. The volatility of the market, we talk a lot about that. The Brazilian saffron seeding, they were under pressure until last few days. Now they are expecting some shower, but nothing is under control. So we have to look at, because it could generate some stress on the market early spring, end of the winter time, early springtime next year. So it's not so far. Chinese demand still questioning, not only for the cereals, and the competitive wheat price for animal feeding, because what is discarded is going to the animal feeding. And concerning the mycotoxin, we have to be careful on the European level. We know that in Italy there are some concern about that for the fumonisin, for instance. In France, we may have some concern with the DON, and this is why it is important to produce the corn and the integrated chain to master this kind of potential issue. Let's talk about what is happening in our organization at Limagrain Ingredients. So a few words first about the quality of the corn. Now you are familiar with this kind of information, but not any kind of corn is suitable for the milling purpose. We have three main types of corn on the planet. The most important is the dent maize or dent corn, which is a very flowery corn. You can see on the left side there is this white part. It's a flower, so corn flour. And this kind of raw material is very suitable not only for the animal feeding, but for the starch producer, because it is easy to separate the starch from the protein into the corn to make the starch product. Then when we go to the right side, we go to what we name the flint quality corn. It's a vitreous corn, and we need this type of corn to run the process, the corn mill process, because the job of the corn mill process is to monitor the granulation of the flour or the grits or the flaking grits. If we start with some floury product, we have no chance to manage the grade of the granulation. So we use this kind of flint corn. In Europe, we can produce only dent flint corn or flint dent corn, because this is the most suitable when we look for the compromise between the yield in the fields and the performance at the milling step. So because if we don't want to pay too much money to the farmer to compensate the difference of yield, we have to use some compromise. And more the corn is flint, less the yield is good in the field. So you can see it's opposite criteria, and we need to compensate the difference between the flint corn yield in the field and what they could get with the dent corn in the field when it comes to pay the farmer for the production of the corn. So it is very impactful on the milling yield when you use a different type of corn. You can see that with the dent we can expect maximum 53% of milling yield. Milling yield is what we can keep for the food grade product, what is not going to the animal feeding as a byproduct. With the flint dent corn, we can expect 65 up to 68%, and we have some flint corn like the plata corn from Argentina, for instance. We can expect more than 70% milling yield, but it's more expensive as well to get the plata from Argentina, at least due to the transportation. And nowadays, more we go, more it is difficult to secure a free GMO product, and not to avoid any cross contamination. And there is this matter of transportation as well. Just to say that when we look at this different profile of corn varieties, it is impacting on what we name the RVA. So it's the infrared evaluation. It's a viscosity that we measure, and you can see according to the type of corn, whether it is dent, meaning soft corn, or intermediate, dent flint, or flint corn, the curves are very different each other. And of course, it is impacting in the process of the finished product in the extruder, for instance, of the customer, but not only at the extrusion step. It's concerned at least what is cooked. So this year, The demand is still there for the flint corn, of course, and we have this kind of difficulties to produce the dent corn. So we need to put some more money into the market to get this right quality flint dent corn. So this is what we do in La Limagne. La Limagne is the area where we farm the corn. It's in the center of France. It's a very nice fertile plain where we farm the wheat, the corn. And we have our dedicated farmer who are producing the corn that we need to produce the different finished product into the mill. And we have a dedicated corn, dedicated varieties to produce the different type of corn flour, corn grits, and flaking grits. So this year we expect a nice harvest in terms volume-wise, because we have managed to secure the acreage despite the competition of the dent corn. But for that, we put more money and we give more money to the farmer to encourage them, because it's very important to secure the acreage and the volume. So at the moment, 35% the harvest is done. It is in the silo. So the quality is pretty good. We expect a good crop overall. So of course, every day we push the farmer to harvest the crop to avoid the late crop. Hopefully, yesterday we did not get too much rain in this area, so it should not affect the next week harvest. But when we go outside this area, we had a very important rain and shower. I understood that in some area they got in one day more than 600 millimeters of water. So it's enormous. So for the mycotoxin risk, of course, later is a crop, more risky it is. But once again, we have some long-lasting experience to segregate, to check, to anticipate. This is our job, and this is, I would say, the valuable part of the integrated chain, because we master the different production steps from the varieties, the breeding, up to the finished product. And once again, we have to pay attention to the value of the byproduct. So I have terminated my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. Now I'm ready to answer different questions, and Elise is passing on to me the list of questions. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Claude. Okay, so just the first one, you've talked about it, but it's about the percentage of corn that has been already harvested in France. So you told us that it was 30% because it's a late harvest.
It depends on the different area, because some area have received a lot of rain, especially yesterday, but not only yesterday, last week it was the same. So generally speaking, the west side of France is very much affected by the rain. Southwest and west of France, these are the most important area for the corn. So for sure, even though the crop we have already about 30% of been harvested, but it still remains a lot of quantity. So for sure, we are going to harvest till early December, and that means a lot of risk for the mycotoxin, where there is no integrated chain and no care about this criteria.
And talking about mycotoxin, we had some questions about the DON level, because it's reported to be very high in Eastern Europe, and also higher levels are reported in France. Do we have the same information?
So when we look at our area in La Limagne, at the moment, no problem. We have at least this quantity of corn in the silo, which is safe and very good quality, sanitary quality. Looking at the rest of the area, so far it was not so problematic because the harvest has been performed, etc. There were no stress during the summertime, no drought, etc. But we have to be careful with what is expecting to come up. So far, so good, but be careful with what is now happening during the next few weeks.
And do we expect other regulations coming up with maximum limits that will be tighter and
First,
tighter?
we have to digest what is happening. What is unfortunate is the fact that for the mycotoxin, despite all the effort we make at Maize, for instance, but not only, all the association of producer of cereals, they are concerned by this kind of regulation because it is concerning as well the wheat. So we are doing an important job at the Brussels level, at the DG Santé. But as already explained by the past, the decision is more in favor of the consumer than the producer. And we have to do with the decision. So this year, unfortunately, the decision, the regulation has been changed before this risky situation. And it may happen that at the end we have a problem with the mycotoxin, and the time to go to the DG Santé to get some derogation and so on, time is running, and it will be too late to change things and to adapt the regulation or to find some derogation. So we know that on the regulation is enforced, there is no way to deal with that afterward. So I don't know if it is possible to come back to the former situation. I'm very afraid about the impossibility to do that. But we have to try for sure. And it's not a matter of, I would say, upstream level, upstream chain, the elevator, the producer. We need the support of the industry and the end user of the raw material, because it's a matter of integrated chain, and we need to find a solution and some, I would say, align expectation. We cannot dream because it may happen that sooner or later we cannot produce anymore some type of raw material, or at least to meet the specification due to the strictness of the regulation. If we look, for instance, at the baby food market, I'm pretty sure that for the baby food segment, it will come a time that there will be no more raw material available in Europe. So because of the regulation, and when we look at the ergot, for instance, for the sclerote, for the wheat this year, it's a big issue in Western Europe. For the datura, for the corn, it is coming an important issue for Europe, north and south. So more we go, more the situation is becoming stricter. So we have to be careful, not only at our side, but at the industrial, at the end user side as well, because it's making the availability more difficult, and then it is putting all the industry at risk in terms of sorting and monitoring of the risk, the sanitary risk.
Thank you. We had another question about the US crop. So is the maize crop from US allowed to be used in Europe in terms of regulations?
Is the crop from US allowed to be used in Europe in terms of regulation? So for me, we have a possibility to import the corn from US and from Brazil, etc. So the problem is the GMO, and you know that the GMO are not allowed in the use, or at least there are some big fears to use the GMO corn in the food use in Europe. The regulation is authorizing GMO crop in Europe, except in France. But at the end, it's a matter of market. So we know that the food market is opposed to use the GMO product in Europe. So we can import GMO soybean, GMO corn for the animal feeding. That's it. Are there still any effort in developing the European Plata variety? This is typically what we have been doing for a very long time at Limagrain, because as you may know, we are at the beginning a breeding company. The mother company is a breeding company, and which has a big focus on the corn, not only now, but the corn was at the beginning of the story. So we benefit this experience. So it has been possible for us to develop not Plata variety, because once again, it's a matter of compromise between the yield that the farmer they can get from the fields and the milling yield we can get from the mill, and the cost that we can afford to compensate. So, but we made significant progress, and now we have very nice flint quality that we use into our mill, and which are allowing us to produce some nice quality flaking bricks, for instance. But once again, the plata, for me, it's not possible to produce it in Europe, except if we put a lot of money on the table to compensate the gap between what the farmer can expect from the Dante variety compared to the plata one. So once again, it's a matter of compromise.
And also a matter of carbon foot impact. And this is
so the
next
carbon
question.
footprint and the carbon trajectory, it's a big challenge for everyone, not only the farmer, not only the industry, not only the consumer, and so on. So clearly said that looking at my job, for instance, I have a challenge until year 2030. I have to reduce by 30% the carbon footprint of any raw material, cellulose raw material I can purchase or I can use taking the market from our producer. So it's a big challenge because it is meaning that we need to change some farming practices. We have two origin of the carbon emission when we look at the cellulose. One is due to the fertilizer, the production of the fertilizer, which is a high producer of CO2. And the second one is during the mineralization of the fertilizer into the soil to make it available for the roots and for the feed of the plant. It is generating as well CO2 emission. So this is a degradation of the fertilizer and the organic matter. So we have these two key topics to address. So how to use some more, I would say, sustainable fertilizer. Some company like Yara are proposing low carbon fertilizer, but it is significantly more expensive, but at least it's a beginning. And concerning the farming practices, we have many things are, I would say, under evaluation, but are as well used at the moment. And some practices are, change practices are on the way. For instance, there is the cover crop, no plowing of the soil, and no export of the straw of the wheat, for instance. There are many things like that, leading to some reduction of emission. And we know that we have a lot of things to do, but it's on the way. In Lalimine, for instance, we have put in force an important program to encourage the farmer to reduce the carbon footprint and to encourage the storage of the carbon into the soil. So there are two ways. You can reduce the emission or you can develop the storage of the carbon. So we work on this direction. We have a very, very good results with the wheat production. And now we start as well with the rest of the production to have I would say a farming model, not only a crop model, but a farming model to orientate the farmer into this direction for the future. But the future is tomorrow. 2030, it's only in 6 years' time, so no time to lose, and we have to act.
Thank you. So it's been 45 minutes, so I think we can stop this webinar. We have some more questions, but you will have responses directly by Claude after this webinar, and you will receive the presentation and have access to the replay on YouTube. Thank you again, Claude.
Thank you to everyone, and thank you to you, Elise, to organize this nice event every year.
And thank you, everyone, again. Have a good day, and we stay connected. You can also have access to our wheat crop webinar that is online. It's the replay of the one we had 2 weeks ago. And thank you again. Goodbye. Have a good day.
Bye.